So let's start with a very brief introduction of yourself. Please let them know.
Yeah, so my name's Akshat. I'm a healthcare entrepreneur. Largely, I operate in the care home space. So I have a few care homes across the Midlands and South Yorkshire.
Mm-hmm.
I also operate in the childcare space, day nursery.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Prior to this, I was a banker. So that's my background prior to moving into care.
That's where you got the money to get care homes.
Possibly, and also the interest because banks lend to care homes, so I had a reasonable understanding of the business side of
Mm-hmm.
things. And then I think in probably like 2015, 2016, around that time, I decided to go into the
Get
sector.
into care.
I was actually looking out for something prior to that,
Mm-hmm.
probably for a number of years before that, but sometimes you don't get opportunities when you want to
Excellent.
get
Yeah.
those
Well,
opportunities,
it's
right? It
when
just
is the
becomes
right time.
available
Yeah.
when it becomes available. So, yeah, but since 2016, I've been operating in this space, yes.
That's great. So it's almost 10 years you have been into care home businesses. Is that
Yeah,
almost 10
I
years?
didn't
Almost a
realize,
decade now. Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Over a
so
decade, I would
yeah, I
say.
feel like a veteran now.
Great. Okay, so just for information to get know more about what actually is like, if I would be a newbie and मैं आपसे पूछूं अक्षत, tell me what a care home is. So how would you define a care home in UK?
There are different types of care homes,
Mm-hmm.
and there are care homes for the elderly. The ones which I run are care homes for the elderly, but you also have care homes for children. So, say for instance, you have I don't know somebody um, 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 say you have abusive parents,
Mm-hmm.
right? So those children will be taken away from their parents and put in a social care home.
Okay.
So those are children's social care homes.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll have learning disability homes whereby there are people with learning disabilities and they may not be able to live independently. So those guys will be in a home as well. But the homes which we largely cater to are homes for the elderly. So
Okay.
most, if not all, maybe we might have the odd resident here and there who's below the age of 65, but
Mm-hmm.
largely everybody would be over the age of 65. And nowadays, I would say that chances are that the majority of the people be over 80,
Okay.
possibly 85. We even have a few people who are 100.
Well, people over
Because people are living longer
people live
nowadays.
long in yeah.
So in years gone by, it was people over the age of 65 would come settle down in a care home because there'll be other people their age and it'll be an opportunity for them to interact with other people their
Mm-hmm.
age. But nowadays, because firstly the cost of care has gone up,
Okay.
and secondly people are living longer. Generally, by the time they come into a care home, they're much older. So for as long as they can, they live on their own, and only when they are potentially unsafe to be living on their own that they move into a care home setting.
So
Uh,
correct me if I'm wrong. So a care home is basically a body or like a house ecosystem where people come when they're quite elderly and वो अपना ख्याल नहीं रख सकते.
Correct.
Correct?
That's
And this is of many different types. Like you have some for health diseases, and then you have mobility guys, and then you have like you said some young
when they
kids
come
also.
into a care home, generally they'll have lots of different conditions. They'll have
Mm-hmm.
hypertension, diabetes, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. I would say, even though in our care homes, not everybody would actually be diagnosed with dementia, but they will be showing some sort of symptoms of
Yeah, I've heard dementia is a very
dementia.
common, and like, it's very common in UK.
At the minute, yes, because people are living very long.
Mm-hmm.
So when you live that long, it is
It's common to have dementia.
it becomes
If
more
that's
likely
right
to
the
have
phrase, yeah.
dementia. Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes you have people with acquired dementia, so alcohol-related injuries. They fall down, uh, hit their heads, and then they acquire dementia. But that's more rare. Largely, it's the organic dementia which
Okay.
people tend to have. There's also a difference between a care home and a nursing home. So a care home is a setting where the older people are looked after by care workers. In a nursing home, you'll have care workers as well as nurses, looking after the residents. The only difference between a care home and a nursing home is that the dependency of the residents will be different. So in a nursing home, they'll have more severe dependencies, which is why you need a nurse to be working in the nursing
Working
home.
there, yeah, okay. As we're on this topic, just to get a gist of it, a, like you said, care home and nursing home, right? So, what is a major difference between a carer and a nurse, like you said, a nursing? So, if you were to gist about it, like okay, because I know ये दोनों care homes में usually मिलते हैं हमें. तो what's the major difference कि एक carer ये होता है एक nursing में? This is what set them
देखिए
apart.
रोल्स तो सिमिलर है
Okay,
बट डिफरेंस क्वालिफिकेशन का है
okay,
डिफरेंस क्लिनिकल जजमेंट का है सो इन अ केयर होम care workers can basically they look after residents, they look after their personal hygiene, feeding, ensuring that they are clothed properly, etc. But koi decisions रहता है nursing home में which are clinical decisions which a care worker cannot make because they're not a qualified nurse, they don't have an NMC pin. वो जो clinical decision होता है that only a nurse can do.
okay.
So in nursing homes where you have more complex cases, you will tend to have
Yeah.
you'll
So
have to have a nurse.
basically to take care of the medication, I would say.
नहीं मेडिकेशन भी केयर वर्कर्स करते हैं
Okay.
बट इट्स नर्सेज आल्सो डू इट बट इट्स फॉर द क्लिनिकल जजमेंट क्योंकि कोई कोई सिचुएशंस में इमरजेंसी सिचुएशंस में you cannot have a doctor there straight away,
Straight away, right?
but a nurse is there to make that clinical judgment.
Okay. Okay. And as we were on there, a care home, like you said, a care home setup. These are some very common phrases जो मैंने सुनी है being in UK for so long. Like there is a carer, then there is like senior carer, and then there is a domiciliary worker and all this.
Correct, correct.
So like let's take one by one. Let's start with a carer. What is a carer? Like jobs and responsibility as we have covered, but let's take it.
So in a care home setting,
Mhm.
a carer is basically a person who looks after the residents. So they will be looking after they'll wake them up in the morning, they'll help them brush their teeth, get ready, wear their pajamas, get into the lounge. Where residents can do it themselves, their independence is promoted, so you encourage them क्योंकि क्या होता है कि हर चीज़ आप resident के लिए करते रहोगे तो they'll become very slack, and it will be detrimental both for their mental health as well as physical health.
Okay.
So you need to keep encouraging them to be doing more. Then they'll bring them over for breakfast, help them with their food. A lot of our residents aren't physically mobile, so they will have to be hoisted. So उसके लिए भी specific training रहता है, moving and handling training, जो आपको सीखना पड़ता है, practice करना पड़ता है. Then some of them will also, so once you get promoted, so if you become a senior carer, you will also start administering medication.
Okay.
But so ये main difference रहता है between a carer and a senior carer. One is the administering of medication, and the second is that you will have a team to manage. So a senior carer will lead a team of carers, giving them direction that okay, you go and look at this aspect of care, you go and look at that aspect of care. They also have more work related to compliance and documentation. But in a domiciliary care setting, it works slightly different. So
Okay.
वहाँ पे जो आप जो बोल रहे हैं domiciliary care workers,
Domestic, yeah, I guess the
they
more
kind
common term
of
is door to door.
they do a senior carer as well as a carer's job.
Okay.
So they look after the feeding, the hygiene, etc. of the person you are looking after. But they will also be administering medication. क्योंकि इसमें क्या होता है कि आप door to door जाते हो to people's houses और वहाँ पे और कोई नहीं है. There's just you.
Okay.
So if that person requires medication, you need to administer the medication as well. So in a care home setting, generally carers won't be doing that. Only senior carers will be administering medication. But in a dom care setting, they will be doing both.
All right.
And nurses, of course. So this place, for instance, is a nursing home.
Okay.
So here we'll have nurses as well who
Yeah,
are
we
there
met
to.
the lovely fellow right now.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But largely, I would also say is a lot of the terminology is interusable. So care home sector में carer use करते हैं या फिर health care assistant use करते हैं. The same thing in a dom care setting they'll call support worker. But the support workers generally also administer medication. So it's like a cross between a carer and a senior carer.
All right. So just what I've grasped from all this is कि एक carer और एक senior carer are almost same. They have almost same duties. Just senior carer पे कुछ extras होती हैं,
Like
taking administrative decisions, taking care of medications, and
administering medication,
team management,
yeah.
right? And apart from that, then there is a domestic care, which more commonly known as door-to-door carer.
Yeah.
वो आपका घर जा जाके they do the services, and they are usually there is only one or there are two.
Usually there's one depending on the resident. So
Okay.
if the person is very difficult to handle, then there may be more than one. But mostly it will only be one.
It will be just one coming to their house,
Yeah.
getting them medication, getting them personal hygiene. So
Yeah.
usually day-to-day jobs जो एक normal young person अपने लिए करता है, वो बस इनको support करने के लिए हैं.
Yeah.
Getting their personal hygiene, getting them ready, feeding them, taking them for a walk. let's
Interacting
say.
with them, entertaining them, because entertainment is a big part of care
Yeah, because पूरे
now as
दिन
well.
अपने,
Because
हाँ.
we don't want our residents just to be sitting there, waiting to fade away. As much as possible, unki obviously they have limitations to what they can do. जैसे हम हमारे पास, and sometimes they won't realize that as well. हमारी एक रेजिडेंट है, उससे जब भी पूछोगे क्या करना है, बोले मेरे को स्विमिंग करना है. But physically, there's limitations to what she can do.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
she might be able to go into the pool and just maybe,
Splash some water here and there, huh?
yeah, splash a little bit of water or dip her feet in. But, there's not a lot that she can be doing. But as much as we can do to try and at least create that sort of an environment for her, we will try and do that.
Right. So this question is basically, I would say, employment के लिए basically ज़्यादा enter है. A local person or somebody who would say is in UK already, वो एक किसी भी care home को, let's say XYZ care home को, वो कैसे approach करे to get a job, okay? What are specific requirements, what you as an employer sees in them, कि भाई okay, these are some qualifications जो आपकी होनी चाहिए if you want to join a care home environment.
See, when you say local member of staff, I would
You
let
are
me
taking
just
it as a-
assume that it is a local person who's got British nationality. Okay, where
Yes, let's take that.
nationalities.
Yes.
See, different people recruit in different ways. For me, I look at more the person's attitude. So care is something which not everybody can do, not because it can't be done, but because the nature of the work requires you to be very kind, very empathetic, very understanding. And if you don't have that, it's going to be difficult for you to be the right fit in the sector. कोई managers होते हैं, providers होते हैं, when they recruit, they will require for you to have experience. Only if you have experience, we'll take you. I'm not like that. Like if I see somebody and I feel that, they have the right soft skills for the sector, I wouldn't mind giving them a chance. Obviously, I can't have everybody who's a newcomer in the care home. There needs to be a good mix of experienced staff and new staff. But I wouldn't write somebody off just because they don't have care experience. वो experience आपको कहीं ना कहीं से तो आना पड़ेगा ना, and that will only come if you get an opportunity.
Right.
What I look for more is, the person's attitude. So if you have the right attitude, the other things can be taught to you. But if you have the wrong attitude, that's a little bit harder to work around.
Is there particular qualifications? Because I know UK is a skill-based market, but like, are there still some qualifications that need to be done?
There are certain qualifications which are recommended. I don't think it's a necessity. So one of the qualifications is a care certificate,
Okay.
Which can be, it's quite easy to get that as well. If you want to become a senior carer, the NVQ level 3 in health and social care. If you're working in a care home setting, specializing in adult social care, that's something which some people may look to get. If you want to become a deputy manager or a manager level member of staff, then potentially a NVQ level 5. Some people even go for NVQ level 7 in health and social care.
Okay, this is something which is much more preferable.
I can tell you that just because you have the qualification does not mean that you can do the job.
Well, this is for
Because
every market,
theory and
yes.
practice is very, very
Very
different.
different, yes.
So I know some people who've got these qualifications, and for them to be effectively working in those roles, I'm a little bit skeptical,
I understand.
But then there are others who don't have the qualifications, and
Uh-huh.
they'll be brilliant fits for those roles.
Okay. So this is जो हमने अभी बात की ये basically उनके लिए जो यहाँ पे British passport holders और they are settled in
Yeah.
UK. This is what you look as an employer in
And
them.
you were asking, how do you go and find a job? The care sector is desperate for people. So they are more in demand than,
Is it
so finding a job in the care sector is very, very easy.
very easy?
There are a lot of big players. You can contact them directly. If not, just go on Indeed and look, and
Thousands of
opportunities
jobs
come.
coming up in there.
Thousands of jobs will
Yes,
come up.
true, true.
The problem that we actually face as employers is that a lot of people will apply for jobs, but they don't actually turn up for interviews. तो क्या होता है कि when people are on benefits, right? They have to show the government,
That they're
probably the
applying for
Department of
jobs. Yes,
Work
I've
and
heard this
Pensions,
about, yes.
Job Center, that they are looking for a job. So they need to apply for a job. So they apply for a job, but when we call them for interviews, they don't actually turn up. So we waste a lot of time doing that as
Doing
well,
that for,
because we'll have an entire day of interview scheduled, and nobody turns up
half of them turns
sometimes.
up. Yeah.
So finding a job in the care sector, if you are really passionate about the sector, is not going to be hard.
Okay. And if somebody, let's take myself, if I was 3 years back when I didn't have the British nationality, how would I be eligible or looking for like as an employer, आप मुझ में क्या देखोगे and what should I have if I'm an international, let's say मैं एक master student हूँ और एक bachelor student हूँ back from India or some any Asian country or somewhere.
देखिए, in terms of characteristics, I will be looking for the same things from you as what I will be looking for from a local candidate. However, obviously, we'll have to look at your eligibility to work.
Right.
That's the only difference that's going to be. Now, if you're working, say as a student, there's sometimes limitations on the number of hours you
20
can
hours,
work,
yes.
20 hours. Now, care home setting में generally क्या होता है कि your shifts are on a 11-hour basis. So typically, you'll have a 12-hour shift with a 1-hour break. So that's 11
hours, okay.
11 hours of paid work. Now, if you are to do 2 of those shifts, it becomes 22 hours. So,
It
for
doesn't
somebody
work like
who's a
that, yes.
student, he might be able to do only one shift
or one
and
half shift.
a half shift. But there are a lot of care homes which don't do half shifts. So you'll probably need to find a care home which does half shifts, or which can work around your routine. Also, with students, sometimes they may be only able to work certain types of shifts. Now, in our care home, we expect our staff to be flexible. So we would like them to work day shifts, evening shifts, night shifts, weekend shifts, whatever, because we like to have that flexibility, and this is made very clear to staff at the time of recruitment as well. Not all homes operate that way, and I'm sure the NHS probably operates, different trusts operate in different ways, but for us, that's how it works. So if that's something which doesn't work for you, if you don't think that you can be that flexible, because this sector demands a lot of flexibility, then you need to find those specific institutions who will be able to support your sort of work pattern.
And at that I'm aware that 20 hours you have student कर सकते हो, and then you have holidays you
And
can
then
do
in your
40
holidays,
times, yes.
you're allowed to
You're
work.
allowed to do.
And then after you become a student, if you have a post-study work visa, then again
Yeah,
you can.
PSWP you can work full
Yeah.
time, and then what chances as a care home, like आप तो employer हो, and I've seen you have a couple of employees here. एक इंटरनेशनल स्टूडेंट के लिए और एक लोकल स्टूडेंट के लिए व्हाट आर योर फेवरेट सर आपका फीडबैक उनको रखने के लिए, बिकॉज आई नो वी रिक्वायर अ स्पॉन्सरशिप इफ यू आर टेकिंग अस इन फर्दर, तो इफ यू वांट टू पुट अ लाइट ऑन दैट.
See, some of my I'll just explain the structure of our organizations. So हमारे यहाँ पे कैसा है कि each of our care homes operate as standalone entities.
Okay.
So they don't come under a group.
A big group, yeah.
Now, depending on the home and depending on the location and the availability of staff, we have a sponsorship license or we don't.
Mhm.
So, say for instance, I have a care home in Nottingham. We have never had issues with recruitment. So, pretty much most of our staff there are local staff,
Okay.
and we don't have a sponsorship license there
Okay.
because we've never required a sponsorship license to recruit from overseas. However, in my care home in Doncaster, we do struggle with finding staff.
Mhm.
So we have applied for a sponsorship license and we have a sponsorship license. So if we have a sponsorship license, we are open to sponsoring people to come and work here.
Right.
But not all our homes have it. It dependent on the area.
But
Uh,
it's if somebody is in need, you are happy to sort out that.
Yeah,
Like most the care
if
homes
we
are
have a
happy to.
sponsorship license and we have the ability to take them and there is a requirement, then yes, we
Yes.
will take them.
Okay.
And we've taken across many countries. We've taken from India, from Nigeria, from we've got some people from the Philippines, although they've been here for a long time, Nepal, so Sri Lanka. So, it's not just, if the candidate is a right fit for the organization, the
You are happy to,
opportunities are
yeah.
there. But there aren't that many homes with sponsorship licenses.
Well, yes, I would say that because
Yeah.
recently, like I'm dealing with a couple of immigrations at the moment. So there are almost 1,300 plus care homes with sponsor license all over the UK.
Yeah, but there
And
are probably a lot more care
care
homes
homes, yeah, of course, there are
than
over
1,300. Yeah.
7,000 care homes in
Yeah.
UK. And I guess you are aware if you're into employment also that there are two types of people who usually come in care home when you say when you hire from internationally. Like there are some very common phrases you look like there is a carer and then there is a senior carer. And after some changes, अभी जैसे recently government changes हुए थे that some can bring dependent and some cannot bring dependent and
I
all that
think the
stuff
salary thresholds have gone up for
for the
bringing
dependent one.
dependents. Yeah.
Okay.
But largely, the kind of people that we've taken over, historically, we used to take people directly from India.
Okay.
I think the initial batch of people who came probably came from Kerala. After that, we've looked at other parts of India and the world as well. But now, predominantly, we recruit from within the UK. So they are international candidates, but they are already here in the UK. So, there may be somebody who's working for another company under a sponsorship, but they're not happy there and they want to
Change to
change companies. Those types of candidates, those are the ones which we have recruited
more of it.
more of recently, because when you bring people from India, sometimes it's more complicated because but these guys are already here.
Right.
So for them to make that transition is quicker. They know a little bit about the country, they know more about the sector. The visa process also is simpler.
Simpler.
And then sometimes people want to come from India but they don't even have money for the flight ticket. So then you have additional costs which we may potentially have to incur as a company. So we and क्या है कि अभी जो pool है UK में ही, that's quite wide.
Of course, yeah.
So I don't need to go to India to get people from there because I have enough people
So you
available.
like most of the care homes in this market prefer कि locally हम they are happy to sponsor but locally prefer करेंगे वो करने से.
I don't know about others, but we are like that. We prefer to recruit locally, and also in terms of bringing people from overseas, we've applied for some licenses, but the Home Office doesn't seem to be issuing many licenses.
Yeah, at the moment it's very strict now. Yeah,
So
Home Office has become very strict now.
but for people who are here already, it seems to be a little more simpler.
Let's say if I'm an employer, Natik, and I'm joining your care home services, what are step to step, like guide me through step by step, मैं कैसे आपका care home join करता हूँ, what will be the steps to get me a sponsorship from your side
As an employee.
as an employee and from my side as well, like what I have to give in that, what you have to do in that, and how I can secure a sponsorship on it and get like a proper
Well, firstly,
job
you
I'd
need
say.
to find an organization which has sponsorship.
Okay.
Uh, that in itself is a challenge
Mm-hmm.
because there's a big shortage of organizations which have a sponsorship license.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Secondly, there is a bit of a there's too much demand. There are too many people who are wanting to get into the care sector on sponsorship.
Okay.
For the local stuff, it's different because uh,
Sorry, stopping on that. As you said कि बहुत सारी demand है अभी. Is there specific, because I know that most of the Indian students or Asian students who are coming here, masters पे आ रहे हैं, bachelors पे आ रहे हैं, they are usually on like XYZ courses. Not all of them are from care like
yeah, yeah.
medical background. तो ऐसा specific इतना spike क्यों है इसमें? इतना क्या demand हो
I
रखी है?
don't know. I think a lot of people, even when they are coming into the UK, उनके जो एजुकेशन कंसल्टेंट्स हैं उनको बोल के बेचते हैं कि आप बस यूके पहुंच जाओ फिर आपको कैर वीज़ा मिल जाएगा. So a lot of people, and that's actually not the case.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
very hard to find these care jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have any data on it, but I'm presuming that a lot of people struggle and they're not able to get a job and they have to go back to India. So what I generally tell, because मेरे को भी calls आते हैं कभी कभी saying that I'm thinking of pursuing this course, that course, etc. My advice to people is, if you're going to the top institutions, so if you're going to an Oxford, Cambridge, LSE, etc., fine, because your likelihood of landing up with a good job is going to
Is
be
much
great.
higher. Yes.
If you are applying to institutions which maybe don't have such a great reputation, brand name, etc., then go there with the intent of learning. Okay, if you're going just with the intent of learning कि मुझे जाना है UK, मेरे को सीखना है उधर, I want to get exposure to a different culture, different ways of thinking, etc., perfectly fine. But if you are going with the intention कि मुझे वहाँ पे settle करना है, then you may or may not be disappointed because it's hard. It's not easy कि आप यहाँ पे आ जाओगे and opportunities are galore. That's not the case. UK also, the economy at the minute is not that great.
Okay.
A lot of people come here to study different types of courses. But अभी वो care में क्यों आते हैं? A lot of them also come because they don't see that many opportunities available to them in the sector where they perhaps want to work. So when we recruit these people, we need to gauge that, does this person have the right characteristic for this sector? Because
Exactly. Yeah.
from their perspective, they just want a job. But I need to assess, but they want a job, that's fine, but does he have the right characteristics for this job? So that is where we have a lot of people applying, but not everybody gets offered a job in a care home because we want people with the right characteristics, with the right skill sets, with the right attitude to be joining us.
And as an employer perspective, like as a job giver perspective, what is your perception ki bhai, let's say there's an MBA student and now applying for a care job, what would that land up in your mind?
I've told you about my one of my colleagues, right? That
Uh-huh.
he's a software engineer who was working for some big
Mhm.
IT companies in India, and he wanted a care job. And the guy interviewed really well. He had already worked in care homes, I think for maybe 6 or 12 months. Uh, did well in the interview. Knowledge was good, but I still had this suspicion in my head that, well, if tomorrow if he gets a job in the IT sector, would he leave and go? And that is a valid consideration, a valid risk
Mhm.
for me to assess. I mean, on that occasion, I decided to give the guy a chance, and that's turned out to be a good decision. But you don't always make the right decision.
Right, true, true.
Recruitment is part luck. So sometimes you make the wrong decision as well.
Okay, now just carrying it on further, as an employer perspective, as well as for safe side of myself, because abhi recently I'm talking with so many students, and I'm getting to know कि students there are two types of people who are coming to care industry nowadays. एक तो जो यहाँ पे थे, they got a sponsorship somewhere in XYZ care home, या एक वो हैं जो इंडिया से आए हैं on specific care homes sponsorships, and वो यहाँ के land कर रहे हैं, and then there is something else, right? Example for being is, let's say, कुछ केयर होम्स उनको जॉब नहीं दे पाते हैं, लाइक केयर होम्स नहीं कहूँगा, केयर एजेंसीज और समथिंग, वो दे गिव देम स्पॉन्सरशिप, उनको यहाँ बुला लेते हैं एंड देन दे डोंट यू नो प्रॉम जो डिलीवर वो नहीं कर पाते जो उन्होंने प्रॉमिस किया था, और वाइस वर्सा जो यहाँ पे ऑलरेडी थे यूके में, जस्ट फॉर सेक ऑफ गिविंग देम स्पॉन्सरशिप दे डिड इट, बट नाउ इट्स नॉट टर्निंग आउट टू बी दैट, राइट? The reason I'm putting this up is like ki how, as an employer, as an like as a student or as a job seeker, how to verify that okay this care home, because I would say there are over thousands of care homes in UK, right? Some are small, some are well established, some are very big names like Bupa and Alliance and all that. So kaise are the standards? Because I recently heard that there are some government standards, CQC passing and all that being input. तो कैसे उसको वेरीफाई कर सकते हैं, एंड हाउ कैन वी चेक दैट ओके द कंपनी आई एम डीलिंग विद डू हैव अ जेन्युइन सेटअप ऑफ बिजनेस, या स्पॉन्सर कर सकते हैं नहीं?
Okay. You are right. There are a lot of bogus organizations in the sector, but largely they are not care homes.
Okay.
Largely they are dom care or home care organizations, you know, where you go do your door to door. And also there are some organizations which don't do anything. They only have a company name.
Okay.
And I don't know how these guys are getting sponsorship licenses, etc. But their business model is basically illegal. What they do is they charge people in their home countries, saying you give me, कुछ लोग तो बोलते हैं कि 10 लाख 20 लाख लोग पे करने के लिए तैयार है just to come to the UK. And they take money from there, issue a sponsorship license, and they bring them into the UK. But when they come to the UK, there is no job because the company actually is almost like a shell company. It doesn't do anything.
Okay.
But once candidates come here, they're a little bit stuck because वो होम ऑफिस को रिपोर्ट करेंगे तो वो बोलेंगे oh, so you're not doing anything here, you've got no work, so you can't look after yourself, so
Because recently these
go
kind
back,
of cases has been spiked a lot.
Yes, but I would also say this only happens when people have done dodgy stuff themselves. So potential recruits have also not been straightforward. You know, so if you have paid somebody to get into the UK, it's only in those types of circumstances that you find yourself in this type of a problem generally. You know, if you've actually gone through legitimate channels whereby the NHS has come and recruited you, you don't generally find yourself in this type of a situation.
Right, right.
It's when people have tried to be a little bit oversmart. You know, some people think, you know, I will just pay my way and get to the UK. Firstly, that's illegal, and secondly, you will find yourself in this type of a situation. And this is something which I think individuals need to take responsibility as well, because yes, there are bogus organizations, but you are choosing to jump in bed with them. So, you know, then you've got yourself to blame as well. So if you actually go through legitimate organizations, you know, you shouldn't be having that kind of a problem. But then maybe somewhere I also feel that people are misled by agents in India, giving them wrong advice that, you know, it's okay, just do it, everybody's doing it, so it's okay for you to do it. But, you know, just be very careful of these agents as well, because these agents might well be getting a cut from these bogus organizations.
Okay. And even if you are not going by the bogus like term of paying and all that, what are the things to keep in mind? Ki, okay, I'm coming from India, I'm getting a sponsorship license from a care home, I do have relevant experience and sab kuch. How to verify that the company I'm dealing with online is genuine?
Well, so say if somebody wanted to see if my company was genuine or any of our companies were genuine, you know, on the internet you can
just company
see it. You know, there will be a CQC registration, there will be CQC reports, there will be a company's house registration, there will be a building with some pictures, potentially a website. So and they will be on the sponsorship list of the Home Office as well.
And there should be a clear communication also why
and there should be a clear communication, and you know, when you look at the paperwork, you should be able to tell But you know, a lot of people turn up here. In fact, I met somebody who they said they turned up. They went to the company. The company doesn't. There's no office. Nothing.
Okay.
And they're like, I don't know who to contact. So, you know, these are questions which you should have been having in your mind before you came itself, as in like, you know, something doesn't seem
Fits well, yeah.
right here. So I think, you know, some people are naive and that gets exploited by, you know, people who are
Some opportunity
ruthless
takers, yeah. Okay.
sharks.
So let's take now. This is I'm taking with a genuine opinion. Let's take I joined in your care home as a carer.
Yeah.
Okay. I may or may not have a relevant experience. Let's take मैं master student था. मैंने as a carer join किया. I did when I
So,
was a student.
just to clarify, so am I to assume that you're coming from outside the country,
I'm
or
already in UK.
you're already
Let's
in
take
the UK?
already in UK. What is it? Because I am in UK setup. I am into care home setup.
Because generally, when we recruit from outside the country, we expect them to have some, because you know we are taking a lot of risk, a lot of effort to bring you over from
Of course, yeah.
another country. So when we generally do that, we will already expect you to have a lot of relevant qualifications. So mostly we've only recruited nurses from outside the country.
Okay.
We don't recruit that many care workers from outside the country, because the other thing which we need to be aware of as well is sometimes in other countries, whether it's Nigeria, whether it's India, a lot of people come up with fake work experience certificates as well. So they'll say, oh, you know, I've got this much experience, etc. But when you speak to that person, you can sort of tell that this person has no idea of
Yeah, it's in
healthcare
the very
at all.
first interview,
You
you
know,
can
so
make that out, yes.
and again, this is because a lot of people mislead them, saying that you know, I'll give you a certificate कि तुमने यहाँ पे work experience किया, but उनसे आप बात करते हैं तो पता चलता है कि this person's not done a day's work in a hospital or wherever it is that they are claiming to do. So we are aware of those challenges as well, that sometimes, you know, people on paper will have something to show, but in practice it can be something different, and we are very aware of that, and we try and assess that and take that into account when we're recruiting as well.
So let's come back that कि मैं already UK में हूँ. I was here as a master student. Okay. I have some experience while I was a student, 20 hours let's take, and then I applied for your care home. आपको interview अच्छा लगा. You hired me as a carer. I'm sorted on my sponsorship part. Okay. I have right to work. I'm a carer in UK. ऐसी क्या growth opportunities हैं मेरे लिए? I can maybe do some qualifications, or like if I want to be in this industry and grow. Okay, let's take I'm a newbie. I worked as a carer. I know all my basic duties and how to grow in it within this ecosystem now.
See, for growth in my organizations, I largely look at the performance of the person rather than specific qualifications, because as I mentioned earlier, you know, you can have a qualification, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be good at your job. So if you start off as a carer, be a good carer, you know, turn up to work on time, be genuinely kind and caring and empathetic to your residents, ask a lot of questions, be aware of what's happening around you, you know, because you almost sort of need to have that Shiva's middle eye type of thing, because a care room setting, there's a lot going on. You know, 1 minute you take your eye off the side, that side something else has happened. So you need to be very self-aware, on the ball constantly. So if you do that right, then you know your next step would be a senior carer.
Okay.
So senior carer, you would also have responsibilities for administering medication. The one thing which I would, I mean, since this is an India-specific podcast, one of the areas where Indians lag behind is sometimes the English. And I'm not just speaking about the accent or anything like that, but you know, the speaking skills, the written skills sometimes can be lagging. And the further up you go in an organization, it becomes more important, because you know, you have to write care planning notes, you need to write letters to external agencies, you need to be able to interact with inspectors, etc. And sometimes they lose out on some opportunities because that is their English writing, speaking skills are not to the required standard.
Okay. And what's further growth after senior carer?
After senior carer, I mean, some people, um, like the gentleman you saw earlier, he moved into administration.
Okay.
Because he has a background in tech and he wanted to sort of explore that route. That's generally rare, but the opportunity presented itself, and he went for it, and he does very well in that role as an administration manager. But typically your next step would be as a deputy manager in a care home.
Yep.
So as a deputy manager, you're basically the boss when the boss is not there.
Okay.
So if the manager is not there, you are responsible for the home. So you are responsible for all the staff, you're responsible for all the residents. You need to ensure that the day-to-day operations run smoothly. If regulators walk in, you will be the person who's interacting with inspectors, etc. So it's a job with a lot of responsibility. And then beyond deputy manager, you become the manager.
Great.
Of a care home setting. Now, in larger care home groups, because we operate our homes as individual entities, we don't have much of a progression beyond a manager, beyond a manager. But in larger groups, you would have maybe like a regional manager. Sometimes they're called operations managers. Then maybe a general manager. So, say for instance, you may have if you've got about 20 homes in the Midlands, then you'll be a regional manager for those 20 homes.
Okay.
And then beyond that, you become the, national manager or general manager or something like that.
All right, yeah, that's good. Okay. We got to know that you had a banking career,
Yes.
but you switched to a care home career, right? Let's say anybody, XYZ career, wants to open up a care home in the UK ecosystem. What are some things to keep in mind? What are steps, and what are some legal license and all that stuff to do? Like, let's say I have, how much funds do I need, or what are the licenses I need, on how to compliance with government to get a care home in UK?
That depends where you're buying. So if you're buying in London,
That's
for
like
instance,
Midlands.
it really depends because care homes are big buildings.
Okay.
So you need to take the property value into account. So if you're in London, even like a 10-bed home is probably going to be several million. So typically, I would not look at buying a care home in London or the southeast, simply because the cost of capital is very high. And when people buy a care home as a business in that area, in London or the southeast, I think you need to see it as much as a property business as it is a care business, because there is a high chance that you will make more money on the property than the cash flows from the business.
Okay.
Because क्या होता है कि हर काउंसिल का एक रेट होता है. Now the rates will generally be higher in London than I don't know, say Northumberland or South Yorkshire, but इतना भी ज़्यादा नहीं है to justify the kind of capital that you're having to pump into a property in London. So I would largely look at other parts, because the cash flows tend to be better. But yeah, I mean, that's single biggest challenge is you will have to build up some capital. I would say it's become harder to get loans nowadays. So typically you're looking at maybe about 40% of the purchase price you will have to put in.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you'll be able to raise a loan for about 60%. When I started, I was luckier because I used to be able to get it at 30%. So you put in 30%, the bank will give you 70%.
Get a care home.
Yeah.
So this is in terms of getting the land or the building.
The building, yeah. And I have never started a care home from scratch. I have preferred to acquire care homes. That is also because the cost of construction today is very high. So if I was, this is my belief, I might be wrong, but if I was to buy land and construct from scratch. My construction cost is so high that for me to get my payback, it's going to take a long time. But if I acquire businesses, quite often we acquire businesses which are not being run well. So we acquire those businesses, turn it around, and then
You run it
we run it. So that's the model that we have largely adopted, and touch wood, it's been
Has been
reasonably
running well.
successful. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what is like, now we are talking finance. So what's the revenue flow from? Like where the money comes in from?
It's basically for when people come in. It's for looking after them.
Okay.
We receive fees. Now, if you have the money, you have to pay for it yourself. If you don't have the money, the government will pay for you.
And is that for every citizen? Doesn't matter.
That's for every citizen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So that's the way it works. So depending on the area, I mean, generally, we are encouraged to get more of private business because that pays better. But that depends on geography as well. So, like in this area, this is a former mining belt. So your likelihood of getting private fees is low. So you're more likely to get government-related, government-funded business. So it'll be either the local council or the NHS, CCGs. So it'll be from there, the majority of your business. But if you're in, I don't know, like Surrey or Cheshire near Greater Manchester, which are more affluent areas, then you'll get more of private business. Yeah.
Okay. I guess we have covered up. Something you want to put from your side? If you want to speak on something that I might have missed.
Have the right attitude, and I think that will help you not just in the care business, but it'll help you in any sector that you go into. Because technical skills, etc., that can always be taught. But to teach somebody to be a good person at the age of 30, that's a lot harder. You're ingrained and built in a certain way. So I'm not saying that you can't change yourself, but it's harder to change your core character than to learn a new skill. And one of the things which you asked about, how do you run a business, as an employer? Largely, it is about managing people.
Well, yeah,
because you do not need to be an expert in every single area. The nurses probably know more about the clinical aspects about a business than me. But I don't necessarily need to know everything about the clinical aspects. I just need to be able to lead the team. So I think if you have a good group of people working for you, that makes the job a lot more easier. You're much more likely to succeed if you have the right team, and then and that's the biggest challenge. Because and I think that's the biggest challenge in every sector.
In every business.
Every sector, the biggest challenge is managing people and getting them and to mobilize them to work towards the objectives of the company.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you, Akshit.
Thank you. Take care.